Channel 2, Nashville.
Good morning. I'm Charles Kuralt, and this is Sunday Morning. Hail to the Chief and farewell. There must be children in this country who think that President and Ronald Reagan are the same thing. If they're 8 or younger, Ronald Reagan is the only president they've ever known. In our cover story this morning, Terrence Smith, who has covered the Reagan administration for us, looks back at those 8 years.
By any measure, the Reagan years have been extraordinary. And now, with just 12 days left to Ronald Reagan's term in the White House, the stock-taking has begun. And his reviews from both critics and supporters alike are mixed. Later on Sunday morning, we'll take a look at how the Reagan performance matched his promises and how historians are likely to view him in the years ahead.
Later on, David Browning will take us to meet an artist who works always in isolation and whose paintings, in fact, seem to be about splendid solitude. Eugenia Zuckerman offers something splendid for both eyes and ears, Aztec songs.
Lalo Schifrin is a composer and conductor whose musical achievements are many and varied. Born in Latin America, his passion for the ancient culture of the Aztecs has inspired a spectacular work for chorus and orchestra. We will attend the world premiere of Lalo Schifrin's Songs of the Aztecs here at the pyramids of Teotihuacan in Mexico later on Sunday morning.
John Leonard will take up his media critic's gavel this morning to judge which of the new television shows qualify as sights for sore eyes. Bill Geist has a report on a sight for sore ears. He is just back from Farmington, Maine, earmuff capital of the world. The United States is making a big fuss over a chemical plant in Libya, which the State Department says is going to be used to produce poison gas. This fuss may get bigger, too. We have asked David Martin and Wyatt Andrews to talk it over this morning. The sports, the weather, and a milepost in a couple of minutes after the headlines for Sunday morning, the 8th of January. Soviet Foreign Minister Shevardnadze made a surprise announcement in Paris today. Speaking before an international conference on the elimination of chemical weapons, Shevardnadze said the Soviet Union intends to destroy its stockpile of such weapons unilaterally and quite soon. He said that representatives of interested nations would be invited to tour the facility now being designed to render the Soviet Union's chemical weapons harmless. As for the chemical plant in Libya, which has been the cause of so many hostile charges between Washington and Libya's Muammar Gaddafi, foreign journalists in Tripoli were offered a look at the plant late last night. The look amounted to a drive past the plant in the dark. And right after that, the Libyan government ordered all the foreign journalists to leave the country immediately. Colonel Gaddafi says the plant was built to produce pharmaceuticals, not chemical weapons. The government of Japan has set a funeral date for the late Emperor Hirohito, who died on Friday. In keeping with ancient tradition, he'll be buried about 6 weeks after his death on the 24th of February. 4 or 5 people are still missing this morning near Allendale in southeastern Illinois after an out-of-season tornado hit that small town last night and destroyed about a quarter of the town's buildings. Nearby communities in Indiana and Kentucky were also hit, but no fatalities have been reported in those towns.
This Sunday only, Starving Artist Group Art Expo and Sale. Thousands of beautiful original oil paintings on canvas by talented professional artists. Giant sofa-size paintings sold elsewhere for hundreds of dollars as low as $19. Smaller paintings from $7. Absolutely no painting over $39. Professional artist quality at rock-bottom Starving Artist prices.
This Sunday only at these locations only. The Marriott Hotel, I-40 at Bradley Parkway, and the Holiday Inn Murfreesboro. Absolutely no painting over $39. This Sunday only, 11 to 4.
For custom fit and personal service, see the professionals at Jensen Shoes.
Having the proper footwear is an important part of any activity. I'm Jack Jensen of Jensen Shoes. We carry New Balance, the finest in athletic shoes. New Balance shoes can help you attain your best performance. Don't take chances when you're working out. Wear properly fitted footwear that is designed for your athletic activity.
Quality shoes professionally fitted with a personal touch. That's Jensen Shoes in Nashville on White Bridge Road in the Post Square Shopping Center.
If you were just returning home from the hospital, could you write a check for your share of the bills? Well, this brochure in your Sunday paper tells how you can receive cash benefits from Physicians Mutual for each and every day that you're hospitalized for any covered sickness or accident. Listen, with hospital costs going right through the roof, most people need help to pay the bills. So watch for this brochure in your Sunday newspaper.
We're here when you need us, Physicians Mutual.
If I could personally thank each H.H. Gregg customer for the greatest sales year we've ever had, it would take me all year. Luckily, you can shop H.H. Gregg's Customer Appreciation Sale for some very special savings like this General Electric 20-inch stereo television. It's cable-ready with remote control. Customer Appreciation Sale price just $329 for GE.
H.H. Gregg Customer Appreciation Sale. But hurry, hugs end soon.
This is the next to last football Sunday. Usually these are better games than the Super Bowl. Cincinnati Bengals versus Buffalo Bills this afternoon, followed by the Chicago Bears and the San Francisco 49ers. Among the highly rated college basketball teams, the winners yesterday were Duke, Syracuse, Michigan, Illinois, Arizona, Missouri, and number 9 Iowa by 1 point over number 6 North Carolina. U.S. International scored 144 points against Loyola Marymount and lost the game. Loyola Marymount scored 162 points. Total points, 306, an all-time college record. Both teams need to work on their defense, it appears. Voting for the Baseball Hall of Fame will be announced tomorrow. If there is any justice, Johnny Bench and Carl Yastrzemski will be immortalized formally, as both are already in our baseball memories. Well, it is not the brightest of winter days in most of the country. To begin with, it's cold. In the Great Plains and upper Midwest, it is the kind of cold that can freeze you stiff on your way from the house to the barn this morning. Highs of 5 to 10 below today, 50 below in some places if you take into account the howling wind. The cold air is sweeping south and east. Really, only Florida will have a comfortable day today. Look at this, a blizzard to go with those temperatures across the high plains and upper Great Lakes. Rain, drizzle, and fog from Maine to Louisiana. Rain and snow in the northwest. A good Sunday to sit by the fire in much of the country. By tomorrow, the wild weather will have departed the upper Midwest, though it will still be extremely cold. We're not quite sure how far north the bad weather in the south will reach tomorrow. There's about a 50-50 chance that it will reach as far north as Baltimore and Philadelphia, bringing snow. The rain and snow in the northwest will move into Wyoming and Utah by noon tomorrow. And that is the weather, which is the name we give to the swish and swirl and freeze and thaw caused around our planet by its spinning in space. The weather is that part of the planet's career we notice in our own yards. But the planet has other business, too. Last week, did you notice, we skittered 3 million or so miles nearer the sun. It was not a close call, but it is our milepost. Every January, a few days into the new year, the Earth reaches its perihelion, that point in its annual loop around the sun, which brings it as close to the sun as Earth ever gets. We do not feel any warmer because at the perihelion, we here in the northern hemisphere happen to be tilted away from the sun. This tilt away makes for our winter. And then close to the sun is a relative matter. Last week at our perihelion, we were only 91.5 million miles from the sun rather than, say, 94.5 million miles away. Had we a model sun reduced to the scale of this Earth, it would still, at perihelion, be many studios and many streets and many miles away. Not a close call, but worth mentioning. Another journey has been completed by our small blue planet. And now we are whirling out into space again, away from the sun, knowing we'll be back.
This portion of Sunday Morning is sponsored by General Electric. At GE, we bring good things to life.
All our science, all our technology, all our mathematics, our computation. Somehow they all add up to moments that are beyond any calculation.
We interrupt this purchase for a reminder. The Discover card actually pays you cash back for every charge.
I hope you like this.
It pays to Discover.
One journal examined it and said it may be the best sedan in the world. Another called it a nearly spectacular mix of performance and practicality. The Mercedes-Benz 300E astonished the experts. Now let it astonish you.
What's in a name? The Kemper name means the security of solid insurance protection for your life, home, business, and auto, even reinsurance protection. But Kemper's more than insurance. It's Kemper financial products, like mutual funds, annuities, and money market funds, working to bring you better tomorrows, insurance and investments. Ask for them by name. Kemper.
Farewell, we call our cover story this morning, with good reason. The country is preparing to say goodbye to its president of the last 8 years. But we bid farewell only to the president, not to his presidency. His time in office will continue to affect our lives. All presidencies do, long after the men who were president leave office. So, farewell to President Ronald Reagan, and welcome to the Reagan legacy. Terrence Smith reports our cover story, an essay in red, white, and blue, with some gray areas, which history will have to color.
For Ronald Reagan, these last weeks in office have been a long goodbye, from Hollywood to the Kennedy Center honors. The oldest man to occupy the White House is leaving office with a higher personal approval rating in the polls than many presidents have when they come in. Historians see that personal affection as just one of the many paradoxes and ironies that characterize and define the Reagan era.
It's not easy to explain why, when so many things went wrong in the Reagan years, and when there's so much evidence that the American people disagreed with so many of his policies, he remained so popular.
One simple explanation: Americans by and large like Ronald Reagan as a person. They laughed with him as he laughed at himself.
This bill is a landmark in the quest for alternative forms of energy, and believe me, when you're my age, you just love hearing about alternative sources of energy.
But, self-deprecating humor aside, opinion is sharply divided about his performance as president.
We're going to be paying off debts for years to come. I think we've mortgaged the country's future in many ways economically. The country is more divided between rich and poor today than it was.
I think Ronald Reagan has been an excellent president, and depending on what happens with the Soviet Union, he may have been a great one.
The
President of the United States.
Perhaps the best way to judge Ronald Reagan as he leaves office is to measure his performance by his own words, the promises he made coming into office.
For decades, we have piled deficit upon deficit, mortgaging our future and our children's future for the temporary convenience of the present. To continue this long trend is to guarantee tremendous social, cultural, political, and economic upheavals.
But President Reagan not only continued deficit spending, he raised it to record heights, putting the nation more in debt than any president before him. Was there a hidden agenda there?
I tend to think that, though it's conceivable that Ronald Reagan thought that he might deliberately create a large deficit and hence hamstring any liberal successor.
William Leuchtenberg, an historian and presidential scholar at the University of North Carolina, is updating his study of the chief executives from FDR to Reagan.
A more likely hypothesis is that he really believed in supply-side economics when he took office and thought that by lowering the rate of taxes and by removing much of government regulation, he was going to inspirit private investment to such an extent that it would wipe out the deficit that he inherited, and that he didn't intend or expect that he was going to leave this legacy of a huge deficit as he has.
Reagan's conservative supporters, like columnist Pat Buchanan, who served as communications director in the Reagan White House, insist that the fault for the deficit lies elsewhere.
I think the responsibility lies primarily with the Congress. I think Ronald Reagan proposed excellent budgets. His problem was he did not have the disposition to confront the Congress, which some of us wished. He followed bad counsel, but ultimately I think he's going to be held in great measure responsible for the deficits.
It is time to check and reverse the growth.
Reagan came into office proclaiming government to be not the solution to the nation's problem, but the problem itself.
It is my intention to curb the size and influence of the federal establishment.
Intention, perhaps, but not the result. The number of federal employees has actually grown, even in the energy and education departments, which candidate Reagan pledged to abolish. These disparities between promise and performance aggravate some Americans, but not others.
His legacy is going to be around for a long time, and I think it's very mixed.
Washington Post columnist Haynes Johnson, who has covered every president since Eisenhower, has interviewed hundreds of ordinary Americans about their attitudes towards Reagan.
They like the old actor. They like the sense of that he brought a good feeling to the country. They like the fact that he is, in terms of ceremonial, ringing the bell of the presidency, ringing it in a way that perhaps no one since Roosevelt did. He could make you feel something about the country.
My fellow citizens, our nation is poised for greatness. We must do what we know is right and do it with all our might. Let history say of us, these were golden years when the American Revolution was reborn, when freedom gained new life and America reached for her best.
Than they've been.
But Johnson has also heard more critical comments.
I can tell you, just in reporting going around the country, that there is more racial hostility today and anger than there was 8 years ago. There's a split in this country. We have two Americas now. There are people who will tell you they've never had it so good. And then there are ordinary Americans, quote, ordinary Americans, middle class, and those people have a very different view about what the Reagan years created for them.
Their differing views were evident in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, a small, quaint town in coal country that is light years away from the glitter of Hollywood or the inside-the-beltway politics of Washington. Its residents are predominantly Democratic, but voted for Reagan in 1980 and 84.
I don't think you can put your finger on any one particular item, but probably from day one, he just kind of made me feel happy and proud to be an American.
I feel his policies were right on. He's tried. You can only do so much as a president because of your Congress and your House and everything. But I think he did well.
He might have some people fooled, which evidently he does. But to me, you know, he's a Class B actor.
My income has risen. My style of living has gotten better. I just think it's better off now than it was 8 years ago.
What is your occupation there? What's your job title?
Your social security number here, sign it here.
In the state unemployment office down the street, the reviews were uniformly harsh.
I've been laid off more times in these 8 years than I have been in 30. I'm down at the steel company 38 years.
I felt that Reagan took a personal vendetta against unions when he fired the air traffic controllers.
Matter of fact, I'm very troubled that Reagan would claim that he didn't know what was going on in his basement with Oliver North and Poindexter selling bombs, guns, and missiles to the crazy Ayatollah while they're killing our Marines in Beirut.
The numbers of Americans living beneath the poverty line reached new heights during the Reagan era, even though poor families benefited from sharply reduced inflation rates. The Reagan budget cuts hit social programs the hardest, leaving parts of the so-called safety net in tatters.
And even the
William Luftenberg.
Situation with respect to unemployment, where the levels have held at least constant in the Reagan years, or even have improved somewhat, the situation there has been improved in considerable part because of the large increase in dead-end jobs, working as a hash man in a chain restaurant, a dishwasher, that kind of job that holds no promise for the future.
Although most of the controversy of the Reagan years centered on his economic policies, the word Reaganomics came into our national lexicon early on. His most lasting imprint was left by the 3 people he appointed to the Supreme Court and by the hundreds of lifetime judges he named to the federal bench.
Excellent record on the federal judgeships. Nobody has done better.
Pat Buchanan.
Look at the names. Rehnquist, brilliant. Scalia, outstanding. O'Connor lived up to expectations. Kennedy is new. Robert Bork didn't make it, but he was the one we all wanted Ronald Reagan to nominate. He did the job there at the federal appellate level and the district courts. They have been Reaganized. You got 50% of the federal judges are now Ronald Reagan judges. You have 3 sitting justices over 80 years old. So it's a wide open field for George Bush to turn this into a Bush court, if you will, right into the next century.
So let me just say, Jelayu Vam Uzbeka.
The most dramatic transformation of the Reagan presidency came in his evolving attitude towards the Soviet Union. After years of denouncing Russia as the evil empire, he found in Mikhail Gorbachev a man he could do business with, and he did. Overnight, Ronald Reagan became the U.S. sales representative for Gorbachev's glasnost.
And we did see history today. An American president and vice president meeting a president of the Soviet Union under the gaze of the Statue of Liberty. Well, it's something to remember.
Reagan contends that the Soviet attitude softened in the face of the U.S. military buildup. His critics argue that millions of the taxpayers' dollars were wasted en route to that buildup. But the president's supporters insist it was a bargain.
Now, if Ronald Reagan has presided over the end of the Cold War, it seems to me his military buildup was well worth it. It was worth every nickel we paid for it.
Periodically throughout his presidency, Reagan was called upon to lead the nation in mourning. Even his critics feel he did that well.
Ours is a love for a fallen countryman who died so that we, a free people, might live and this great nation endure.
Haynes Johnson.
In times of tragedy, the shuttle disaster, or whatever it may be, Ronald Reagan was there full and center on stage. People like ceremony, and they like to have someone who can articulate national values.
Of course, the Reagan presidency nearly came to a halt just 2 months after it began.
I think it made him kind of a mythical figure. The country, and I think it accounts for a lot of the willingness to forgive many of the mistakes of Reagan, because he survived and we didn't have a tragically broken presidency right at the beginning, and I think people felt, well, he's lucky and maybe we'll be lucky.
Lucky? Yes. A mythic figure? Perhaps. But the problem in assessing Ronald Reagan has always been separating image from reality. The bottom line as he leaves office is that he restored and expanded the bully pulpit of the presidency, but that his personality was more important than his policies. He leaves the country saddled with debts, due bills that his successors will have to pay. But true to his old trade, he also leaves them laughing.
Yet as soon as I get home to California, I plan to lean back, kick up my feet, and take a long nap. I'll come to think of it, things won't be all that different after all.
Early in the morning, before the world gets up, I find a little sunshine inside my coffee cup. What better way to start the day with the best of company than a good to the last drop feeling of Maxwell House. I think he's kind of sweet on you.
I'll see you tomorrow, Bill.
To the last drop feeling of Maxwell House.
Bye, Mabel.
Introducing the new BMW 5 Series sedan. The spirit of a car company, sculpted into 3,400 pounds of steel, glass, and leather.
We're now approaching a truly outstanding collection of 20th century technology. In here stands the most powerful general-purpose computer in existence. And here we have the world's most advanced disk storage system, which can read or write 3 million characters of information per second. And over there is a remarkable mid-range system, unveiled with more than 1,000 available software applications. Now, this isn't a high-tech research facility or a museum of science. This is a business.
Just waiting for money.
And all of that advanced technology is brought to your desk through powerful personal systems to help solve problems in business. There are more examples of IBM technology at work.
This is your home-owned Horner Roush Optical Superstore, an eyewear department store with thousands of frames and a free 1-year guarantee on eyeglasses. Doctors on premises provide eye examination or just bring us your prescription. Our in-store lab has you wearing the glasses or contacts in about an hour, even bifocals.
I just walked in and had my eyes examined by a doctor, and I got my glasses in less than an hour.
Horner Roush Optical, now with 4 superstores.
The cat is back. Introducing the all-new Mercury Cougar LS, restyled for '89. New line, new features. And to celebrate the news, your Lincoln Mercury dealers offering great values on every car in stock, including the luxurious Lincoln Town Car and Lincoln Continental, one of the most advanced luxury cars in the world. We're out to move everything off our lots in just a few short days, and we're writing the deals to do it. See the all-new Mercury Cougar and the other great values at your Lincoln Mercury dealer now.
Read all about it! Soup Sack Sisters, right here!
The smash musical comedy that's making headlines is coming.
Sources at the convent have labeled the health inspector's charges nonsense.
The Little Sisters have become big hits. Jody Goodman stars in Nonsense, the off-Broadway musical of the year. The New York Times called it wacky fun. Variety called it hilarious. Don't miss Nonsense.
For ticket information, let's go back to the studio.
January 10th through the 15th.
This is WKRM, Channel 2, Nashville.
It's Sunday morning on CBS, and here again is Charles Kuralt.
And here again is John Leonard. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Charles.
What with working late and traveling and all, I really don't know how the television season's been going so far. Can you tell us?
Well, Charles, the short answer is lousy. Maybe the writers are still on strike. NBC's Brandon Tartikoff deserves something special for counter-programming Geraldo Rivera and Vanna White against ABC's War and Remembrance. That something special is our contempt. And because of the writers' strike, the Olympics, the presidential campaign, the November sweeps, and failures of nerve and character too numerous to mention, the schedule itself has been revised more often than Soviet history. What follows is personal preference, a few programs I'd stay home for if I could figure out which night they've been switched to. Who'd have thought Candace Bergen would be a wonderful comedienne? We last saw her as the Mayflower Madam, den mother pimp, for a band of sorority sisters who lounged around, eating popcorn, watching Geraldo, and feeling just peachy keen until they had to go out and do this icky thing.
Adam West.
Because I love Candace, I stay put on Monday nights on CBS for Designing Women. Until Designing Women, I thought Atlanta was just an airport where I lost my luggage, my children, and my dignity.
4 VIP tour tickets to Graceland.
But the Designing Women are on a roll this season. When they hit the road to look for Elvis and somehow found the meaning of his music to people who weren't at all freaks, like Saul on the road to Damascus, I was converted.
God, don't make me listen to that boring story again.
On Tuesdays on ABC, there's Roseanne, the favorite new show of the people meters. Stand-up and drop-dead comedian Roseanne Barr works in a plastics factory, is married to a semi-sloth, and quasi-mothers 3 obnoxious children. Tired as I am of soaps on which beautiful people manage to be sad inside their money, I'm equally suspicious of blue-collar cute, the built-in condescension of let's all smirk at the working classes while they go bowling. But Barr is very funny. If you want to be uplifted in your family values, watch Cosby instead. When I watch Cosby, the family values I think of come from the House of Atreus and the brothers Karamazov.
This place is booked to capacity. There's a downside to running a co-op. If you...
Finally, Heartbeat returned to ABC last week on Thursday nights. Heartbeat is for those of us who never missed an episode of Cagney and Lacey. Imagine a woman's medical collective in which patients are admitted to the care not of high priests of the newest technology, but of doctor women like Kate Mulgrew, for a sort of hands-on civilizing in the passages of life and death. Imagine a head nurse who's not only a lesbian, but isn't swallowed by the San Andreas fault when she admits it. Imagine, in the middle of this seriousness, a yuppie surgeon with a sense of humor.
You were looking at Sigourney Weaver. I was tough. I was cool. I was in control. Suddenly, the alien's tentacle whips across my face. I'm down to my last pint. Her heart rate drops like a rock. I spot the placenta. The mother alien goes for the kill. My scalpel flashes, and it's free. I was incredible.
Heartbeat notwithstanding, women usually do better in TV movies than they do in weekly dramatic series. Maybe it's because their abiding concerns can't be neatly resolved by an insult or a car crash. Programmers are impatient with the time it takes to work out a process like marriage or children or healing. If we have to think about process and pattern, the intractable problem, the defining moment, and the long haul, better we should get it over with, one disease at a time each month, and then finish off these difficult characters so immune to punchlines and shootouts. You'll have noticed that all my preferred programs feature interesting women. I don't see why I shouldn't want on television what I need in life.
You're about to see surgery performed. Without anesthesia, without sutures, even without a scalpel. This is the CT scanner by GE. It's a remarkable machine that lets doctors see and explore the human body without a single incision. It actually takes tens of thousands of images and assembles them into a clear, precise picture. This allows doctors to see clearly the most intricate details of the human anatomy, which until now could only be seen through conventional surgery. The CT scanner by GE.
That's it.
That's it? That's it.
Bringing new vision to exploratory medicine.
I'm okay. Let's go home.
GE, we bring good things to life.
At BASF, we believe to see in new ways, you need to see with more than one pair of eyes. Synchronize your energies with the people down the hall and around the world. Because the more ideas you can build on, the higher we can all reach. From agribusiness to healthcare, we're creating new worlds by seeing in new ways. BASF, the spirit of innovation.
The new Buick Riviera. It's a classic all over again.
The road has been waiting, you're anticipating the spirit you felt way back when. Riviera is back, a classic again. The legend once more, what the road's waiting for. Riviera, a classic returns. Oh, the great American road belongs to Buick.
Aztec songs now. Are there really any such songs we might still hear? When Cortez, the spade-bearded conquistador, came clanking ashore in the New World, he found cities he could hardly describe, ruled over by god-kings, anchored by temple pyramids, glinting with gold, vast and regal and strange. Where Cortez was once, Eugenia Zuckerman has just been.
Among the mountains of central Mexico lie the proud cities of many great civilizations. The Aztecs, the Toltecs, and an even more ancient people who built the great pyramids of Teotihuacan 2,000 years ago. You can still see the heritage of these lost cultures in the faces of the Mexican people. You can hear its rhythms in the language of Nahuatl, still spoken by millions of Mexican Indians.
Muy bien.
Spanish is the official language of Mexico now, but when Argentinian-born composer Lalo Schifrin decided to write a cycle of songs about Latin America's lost splendor, he chose the language of the past, Nahuatl.
Last night, after rehearsal came an Indian woman. Her mother was Indian, and she spoke Nahuatl. But it was forbidden when this lady was a child to speak Nahuatl, because it was considered a very low-class language. So last night she was so thankful that we are doing this thing in Nahuatl. She made an invocation to her mother and said, "Can you believe, Mother, that a piece has been written in Nahuatl? This is a vindication."
The Aztecs is a grand attempt to tell the history of Mexico in music. The words of the songs are based on the writings of Nezahualcóyotl, an Aztec poet prince.
Vamos a hacer, no, del 48. The words in Nahuatl are very musical, very sweet. And also when you say a Nahuatl word, it dictates almost a melody. Chocolato, see? You can almost write a melody. It comes very easy.
Many kinds of music have come easily to Lalo Schifrin. His first teacher was his father, concertmaster of the orchestra of the Teatro Colón in Buenos Aires. And after that came formal classical training in Argentina and at the Paris Conservatory. And then Lalo Schifrin discovered jazz. And the legendary Dizzy Gillespie discovered Lalo Schifrin.
First thing I wrote for him was a suite called Gillespianas. It's a musical portrait of his personality. That the record became a gold record, so 1 million albums. So my first thing in America was a success, and I always say as a joke that I started at the top and there nowhere to go but downhill, because really, you know, that was my first experience.
But you certainly didn't go down.
No.
And you then began writing your own.
I went sideways.
He began writing music for movies and television. But Lalo Schifrin has never forsaken his classical roots. He is presently the conductor of the Paris Philharmonic and the Mexico City Philharmonic Orchestra. He conducts a youth orchestra in Los Angeles, and his symphonic works have been performed by orchestras around the world.
I'm very happy doing everything I'm doing, and maybe I'm like a child that needs to do a little bit of everything in order to keep the curiosity going. And actually, it's very healthy to me, because if I had to be doing all the time one thing, maybe I'll become stale.
Songs of the Aztecs is part classical, part historical, and part Hollywood, a spectacular work for orchestra, chorus, and soloists. The songs are about religion, and about lost faith, and about conquest. An undertaking on such a grand scale requires a setting to match. The site for the world premiere concert would be the Plaza de la Luna in the ancient city of Teotihuacan, just outside Mexico City.
Well, I was compelled by this place. The first time I came to this place, I couldn't, at that time I didn't know that I was going to compose a piece. It's impossible to describe. The only way to exorcise that feeling was to write the cantos.
UNESCO recently declared the pyramids of Teotihuacan a patrimony of mankind. The world premiere of Lalo Schifrin's Songs of the Aztecs will launch a campaign to raise money for the preservation and restoration of Teotihuacan. The renowned tenor Placido Domingo, who was born in Spain but brought up in Mexico, would sing the part of the poet, Netzuacoyotl, with the Mexico City Philharmonic Orchestra and Chorus.
Fine
will go to the home of our God, the poet Netsuakoyoto wrote, but our words and our songs will live on here on earth.
It's no joke being fat in Florida, where it's almost always bathing suit season. And with 60 pounds of extra fat, I look like a beach whale. But food wasn't the only thing I was abusing. I was destroying my health with too much beer and too many cigarettes. I finally decided no more looking in the mirror and saying, yuck. Now that I've lost 60 pounds, I have a lot more self-confidence. In fact, I feel like a whole new person. Want to look and feel as good as you can, too? Discover how. In Prevention.
Call now for your trial subscription to Prevention, America's leading health magazine, read by 8 million people each month. Prevention brings you ways to improve your body and your mind, like 39 tips to de-stress your life. What Harvard doctors advise for healthy hearts. 21 hints for outstanding sex. Easy ways to get more fiber. Science's new weapon against wrinkles. And how to walk your way to slimmer hips.
Don't wait. Call now.
I was a yo-yo dieter. I'd lose 5 pounds, but gain back 10. It got so bad I couldn't squeeze into a size 14 jeans. And at 5'1", I was 40 pounds overweight. Finally, I said enough. I gave up bad diets and worked at changing my attitude, as well as my eating and exercise habits. Now, my jeans are a trim size 5, and the best part is I feel better physically and mentally than I ever have. Want to look and feel as good as you can, too? Discover how in Prevention.
Try Prevention without risk. Receive 12 issues for just $13.97, a $7 savings off the cover price. If you're not delighted, get every penny back, no questions asked. Plus, free with your paid subscription, Prevention's No Diet, No Willpower Weight Loss book. In it, you'll discover how other people have shed pounds permanently without diets, gimmicks, or rigorous exercise.
Call now, 1-800-227-7000.
Don't wait. Call now.
Bill Geist time seems to have rolled around again on Sunday morning. Morning, Bill.
Morning, Charles. I wanted to wish you a happy Elvis's birthday.
Is today Elvis's birthday?
January 8th. The show seems to keep falling on holidays. We had Christmas 2 weeks ago, New Year's Day a week ago. Today it's Elvis's birthday, and we'd like to say happy birthday to Elvis, who watches the show on WWMT out in Kalamazoo, I believe. He's been spotted out there recently. But today we wanted to focus on another major holiday. It's major in Farmington, Maine, anyway. It's Chester Greenwood Day, and Hallmark hasn't come out with a card for it yet, but a local minister has even written a ballad about it up there.
"1873, famous time in history, celebrated now, you see, as Chester Greenwood Day. Who ever heard of Chester Greenwood, Maine's beloved, Maine's own son? Who ever heard of Chester Greenwood? Ask anybody in Farmington."
I like that.
Here, everybody knows about Chester Greenwood. He's world famous in Farmington. Chester Greenwood of Farmington, Maine, invented earmuffs.
Whereas Chester Greenwood of Farmington, during his long and productive life, continually demonstrated a kind of ingenuity that has long defined the Down East Yankee character.
The governor even came to town to make it official.
Created the device that has protected from wintry chill and exposure to the elements ears of all sizes and shapes. the renowned earmuffs. Now, therefore, I, John R. McKernan, Jr., Governor of the state of Maine, do hereby proclaim the first calendar day of winter as Chester Greenwood Day throughout the state of Maine. Thank you all very much.
Dick Morton is said to be the father of Chester Greenwood Day.
It wasn't my idea.
That's what they all say,
You
Dick.
probably call me the midwife. I got it through the legislature. Every state ought to have a Chester Greenwood Day.
One of the places in town that likes Chester Greenwood Day the best is Rennie's Department Store, where earmuffs are outselling snow shovels.
Susie Bracken told customers they could be arrested for not wearing earmuffs to the parade, the highlight of the day.
Thank you. Same to you.
I'm interested in some earmuffs today.
Yes, we have quite a variety.
I
How
noticed.
about the little tiger variety?
These are, what would these be like
These
for
are your
hunters
hunter
or something,
ears.
so your ears don't get shot off? Yeah.
I know, I love it. I've tried to push these to hunters, but for some reason they don't want them. I don't know.
Is it because
Your
they look
basic black,
stupid with
that's
them
my
on?
big seller.
Yeah, would this be what for Saturday night in Farmington?
Yes, put a few rhinestones
Like with
on
the
there. You
tufts
go
or
anywhere.
something, yeah.
True. They could do that.
Are we blocking
Lena.
sales here? Come on.
Earmuffs.
Go right ahead. We don't mean to...
Any green ones? No, that's too bad.
I have 7 kids
who've had to go bankrupt getting earmuffs, I'll
How many, really? What do you think of Chester Greenwood Day? Why did it become a big deal, do you think?
They are popular.
Probably somebody got bored and wanted to do something to do.
Right.
A day off from school.
Yeah, a day off from
Another
school.
parade.
Farmington school children learn almost as much about Chester Greenwood as they do about Washington, Jefferson, and Franklin.
Yeah, who's learned something about Chester Greenwood lately?
He invented the donut hook. He invented a rake.
A rake? Like a leaf rake? Really?
He invented a mechanical cat.
A mechanical cat? What's that?
Well, it had holes in it, and I think there would be sort of like a little slot that the door would be in, or something would go, or it would get caught in.
Chester Greenwood was honored by the Smithsonian Institution for holding more than 100 patents.
What do you do with that? You make peanut butter or something?
History buffs can see an earmuff retrospective over at the bank, where earmuffs from the 1800s and khaki ones from World War I are attractively displayed. Earmuff buffs can visit the old earmuff factory and drop off some dry cleaning at the same time. Then, on to the Chester Greenwood Mansion, which stands in mute testimony to the earmuff fortune amassed by Chester Greenwood. As incredible as it seems today, young Chester invented earmuffs in 1873 when he was but 15 years of age. School teacher Clyde Ross is Chester Greenwood, at least for the day, and gets to lead the big parade.
Ready now to go out and meet the people and do the things for the day.
Ronald Greenwood is Chester's great-grandson, and something of a celebrity in Farmington. Ron is the Grand Marshal and gets to wear some of the original antique earmuffs.
I have the original.
Really? Could you show those to us for a second?
The original factory earmuffs that were made.
Wow. The parade includes practically everyone and everything in town, all wearing earmuffs. Preparedness. Earmuffs, yep. That was about it, to tell you the truth. Anticipation is sometimes the largest part of such festivities.
Has the band dispersed?
Since the band had gone home, everybody just sort of went their separate ways in their earmuffs. And things got back to normal, fast.
Such a practical invention, comfort and frostbite prevention, brought to everyone's attention Chester Greenwood Day.
The excitement of Chester Greenwood Day was over, signaling the onset of another one of those bitter Maine winters that inspired genius.
Chester Greenwood Day. Who ever heard of Chester Greenwood, Maine's beloved, Maine's own son? Who ever heard of Chester Greenwood? Ask anybody in Farmington. Ask anybody in Farmington.
Local news is not just a Monday through Friday business. At Channel 2 News, we make it our business to bring you the best weekend coverage with Lauren Terry and John Clark. Join Channel 2 News weekends at 5 and 10. We're working harder to be your choice for news.
She was so beautiful when I first saw her, I thought my eyes had failed me. We've seen a lot of years together since then. But last year, my eyes really did fail me. I had cataracts. Good thing I found out about the Aerosmith Eye Institute. The cataracts were removed without going to the hospital. Now I can see fine, and she looks just as good as she ever did.
Call the Aerosmith Eye Institute in Nashville for a cataract checkup. You'll see the difference in our care.
Now's the time to buy at Circuit City's spectacular January clearance sale. Hundreds of great values. Save on audio with compact disc players as low as $77. Save on video with VCRs from $169. Save on appliances with refrigerators beginning at $249. The January clearance sale going on now at Circuit City, the intelligent choice.
This is WKRM, Channel 2, Nashville.
Literally.
It's almost as if someone once said, just in case people like sunshine and water, we had better make Florida. And we'd better make miles of beautiful beaches, just in case people want to go to them. There are over 4 million miles of roads in Alamo territory, all across America. And nationwide, Alamo's the only company that can give you all those miles for free, including the 315 miles of sunshine on a road we call A1A.
16 Bedford Street, the toast is with fine crystal. On Astor Lane, a powerful telescope probes the night sky. And over on Shore Road, a new TV is entertaining the Kagans. All these things were bought with Visa Gold, which protects them against loss, theft, damage, and doubles the manufacturer's warranty. And with Visa Gold, you can get this protection at nearly 3 times as many places as American Express. Visa Gold, it's everywhere you want to be.
The making of freeze-dried Taster's Choice coffee. Search the world for the finest coffee beans. Dry them. And at the peak of freshness, brew the richest, most aromatic coffee you can brew. Then freeze it. Freeze-drying locks in the fresh brewed aroma and flavor until you release it. For a truly superior cup of coffee, the choice for taste is Taster's Choice.
Taste it.
Imagine your refrigerator with bigger door shelves for bigger bottles, with leftovers left in quick-serve trays for leftover space, more space, nearly 27 cubic feet, and a door in the door for things you use more. Imagine GE's Space Center 27.
It's Sunday morning on CBS, and here again is Charles Kuralt.
The subject is chemical weapons, poison gas, and we are joined this morning by CBS News Defense Department correspondent David Martin. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Charles.
And by Wyatt Andrews, who is in Paris attending a international conference on the subject of chemical weapons. Good morning, Wyatt.
Good morning, Charles.
I guess you have the headline this morning. Tell us the news.
I'm not sure that we have a headline just yet, but I suppose you're referring to the meeting that's going on this very minute, or at least as when we last checked it still was, between Secretary of State George Shultz and the Soviet Foreign Minister Shevardnadze, both of whom came to attend this chemical weapons conference. But on their agenda at that one-on-one meeting that they're having is the Libyan chemical weapons plant. Shultz, we are told Shevardnadze about the Libyan plant both in September and in a December meeting. But the Soviets up to today have not signed on to the American, or don't believe the American evidence that that plant's capable of making chemical weapons. In response to that, Shultz had said on his way over here he was going to make a special effort to convince Shevardnadze that the American evidence was accurate. The Soviets have said they're ready to hear that evidence, and we know that that's going on today. Shultz is in something of a box, though, and he's admitted that, and that he can't give the Soviets all of the intelligence information that the United States has come up with on that plant, because that would give away too many of America's spying secrets. But in any event, we're waiting to hear if Shultz's effort to persuade Shevardnadze was successful.
I have a question. I guess, David, you might have a go at this if you don't mind. The United States has chemical weapons. The Soviet Union has chemical weapons, though Shevardnadze said at that meeting that it's going to start destroying them. At least 15 or 20 third world nations have chemical weapons, and Iraq has used them against the Iranians and against its own Kurdish minority, killed 10,000 people or so with those things in recent years. The question, with that long preface, is why are we picking on Libya?
It's an interesting question, Charles, because the debate right now has been focused on whether this is or isn't a chemical weapons plant, and as far as I know, there's really not all that much disagreement within the United States government. I don't think there's any within the U.S. government over the fact that this is a chemical weapons plant. You have countries like Great Britain and Canada which say they are convinced, and you still do have holdouts like the Soviet Union and West Germany. But frankly, I think those holdouts have more to do with the politics of the situation or the diplomacy of the situation than they do with the quality of the evidence. So if you accept that that is a chemical weapons plant, then you have to ask this question, which you pose: what right does the U.S. have to say that Libya cannot have chemical weapons, and even to go to the point of beginning to draft military contingency plans for a strike against that plant? And it's a tough question to answer. The administration's answer would be that of all the countries which make chemical weapons, only Libya is likely, or most likely, to give these chemical weapons to terrorists like Abu Nidal, who would then, say, set off a chemical weapon in an airport terminal with mass casualties to civilians.
Is that what's on the State Department's mind, Wyatt?
Exactly right, Charles. You know, the State Department has been pressed on the very points that David was mentioning. Isn't it unfair of the United States to single out Gaddafi as opposed to, say, Afghanistan or even Egypt, which at some point has been suspected of having a chemical weapons capability? And the simple truth of the matter is the State Department has not disguised, it's not trying to justify this on any rational, logical basis. They say it's Gaddafi. He has a history of terrorist acts, and that it's unacceptable for him to have a chemical weapons capabilities. These are not the fine points of absolute logic we're involved with here, Charles. It's directed at the man.
David, the Libyans lost a couple of their airplanes to U.S. carrier jets off the coast of Libya last week. Are they still saying in Washington that had nothing to do with this plant?
They are, and I believe it, Charles. At least in the U.S. mind, it had nothing to do with this plant. It's hard to tell, of course, what was in Gaddafi's mind if he, in fact, sent those Libyan planes out there. I think there are really sort of two possibilities, but you have to preface this by saying it's speculation. One is that these were two Libyan top guns who were just looking to make heroes of themselves and try and bag a couple of Navy F-14s. The other is that Gaddafi sent them out there to create some sort of incident on the eve of this chemical weapons conference, which would allow him to accuse the U.S. of what he actually did accuse the U.S. of, premeditated aggression, and somehow take the moral oomph out of the U.S. position at this chemical weapons conference.
Well, Gaddafi is now saying, now look, let's not shoot at one another. Let's talk about this. He's offered the hand of friendship, or at least of the proposal for for talks with the United States, Wyatt. Any chance that that's going to happen?
Well, there's perhaps some chance, Charles. The U.S. has no diplomatic relations with Libya, but they are capable of talking to one another. They do that through the Belgians and the United Arab Emirates. They do our talking to Libya for us. The State Department, I'll just use direct language here, Chuck. Charles, the State Department thinks Gaddafi is a simple nutcase, and they point to the fact yesterday that he did this by wading into a lobby full of foreign journalists saying that he wanted to have a cup of coffee. Come on. The State Department's reaction to that was basically, if he's got something to say to us officially, we're here. But they certainly don't take Gaddafi seriously based on what he did yesterday and based on proposals that he's going to make to a lobby full of news reporters.
In the meantime, he's obviously worried that he's been attacked by American planes once. He's obviously afraid that something like that might happen again. There have been veiled threats that it might happen. I heard somebody in Washington say those threats are coming from us, from the press. But didn't President Reagan say that maybe that might happen?
Well, President Reagan's sort of been all over the map on this. He originally said, in response to a question, why don't we just take this plan out if we're so worried about it? He originally said, well, we haven't decided about that yet, the clear implication being that we're thinking about it. But then, just in an interview with Mike Wallace this week, he was much more cautious and said all he meant to say is that we never discuss military contingency planning. So, and there's been one story in the Washington Post that says he has decided in his own mind against an attack on Libya simply because of the international ruckus it would create. Those kinds of stories, after you've been one of the reporters doing stories on the possibility of a military strike, always send you scurrying back to your sources. And I went back and I was told that nothing has changed, that a military strike remains an option if they cannot find some other way to stop that plant from going into full-scale production.
Okay. David Martin, thank you very much. Wyatt Andrews in Paris, thank you both for shedding a little light on a complicated subject.
Touchstone Pictures presents the motion picture critics are cheering about, Beaches, one of the most heartwarming movies since Terms of Endearment rave sneak previews.
Wasn't that something?
CBS Television gives Beaches 4 stars. The New York Times says one is reminded of just how powerful a pop singer Miss Midler can be. And WNBC Television hails it's a hit from coast to coast. Bette Midler, Barbara Hershey, Beaches, rated PG-13. Now playing in select cities, starts Friday at a theater near you.
Most cars are designed specifically to handle this, the sales curve. The BMW 325 IS is influenced by curves of a slightly different nature. Before you choose a car engineered for the whims of the marketplace, consider one designed for undulations of a far more relevant variety.
Now, what about the Stanton judgment? Tough case?
We won it.
Nice work.
I had a great team.
Bet you she gets a great raise, too. Our next junior partner should be getting some good financial counsel. Call my Prue Bates broker.
Rock solid.
At Prudential Bates, rock solid means an all-star team behind you, armed with the strength and resources to win.
So, big gun make you a partner yet?
Bang.
Prudential Bates Securities, rock solid, market-wise.
If you're trying to lose a few pounds and butter is out, you're gonna love this.
Molly McButter.
Now you can shake on the taste of butter for just 4 calories.
Molly McButter.
Molly McButter Natural Butter Flavor Sprinkles. The taste of real butter with only 4 calories per serving. A very wholesome, 100% natural 4 little calories. So indulge yourself.
Molly McButter.
You've got Molly now.
Where do artists create their art? Everywhere, of course, in busy rooms with many easels, with traffic going by and friends dropping in, on the corners of napkins in restaurants, or on sketch pads out on the street, perched on ladders so as to reach high walls. David Browning takes us now to meet a renowned American painter who has come to feel more and more that splendid art is best made in splendid solitude.
I think what an artist does is all about what's around him, what's his environment, cultural, physical, visual.
Wandering through the countryside in California's Sonoma County, he appears every bit the outdoorsman.
I used to think I was a really landscape artist, and I think I've revised that a little bit.
He is, in fact, a recent arrival from the big city who has come to this land of color and quiet to paint the quiet, colorful works that have made him famous. He is Richard Diebenkorn, a master of contemporary American art.
I think it's hard for an artist to see himself, really. I'm aware of a predisposition to spareness or aloneness is something I value.
Where would you like to be right now?
Alone somewhere. His sense of aloneness extends well beyond the canvas. In an age of publicity-hungry artists, Richard Diebenkorn has always felt uncomfortable in the spotlight.
And your paintings look beautiful.
Thanks very much.
It's really a pleasure to see them. I came down.
The solitude of the studio suits him well. For years, his working procedure has been the same: to sit and contemplate a canvas, sometimes for hours, before ever picking up a brush.
Usually pieces have to go through several sessions. I never seem to be able to get anything one shot right off. Sometimes I get sort of rooted to the chair, and then sometimes I think, well, you know, I just can't sit here. I've got to do something. So then I'll be really rather arbitrary.
Is that really the feeling? Do you feel like you're wasting time, or...?
Sometimes, yeah.
Really?
Time's going by.
How would you describe it in its current state? Finished?
Yeah, I think possibly almost finished, but those are famous last words, almost finished, and I've said that about pieces and found myself still working on them a year later.
His work, nearly 50 years of it, includes early abstract paintings. A period during the 50s and 60s when he turned to landscape, to still life, the human figure. And in the last 25 years, the series of serene geometric abstracts that sealed his reputation, the Ocean Park series, named for the area in Santa Monica in Southern California, where his studio was. It was a place that inspired many of his greatest works, but the pressures of the Los Angeles area began to intrude too much on this most solitary of men.
In the last year, I felt that each time I went out in the car to West Los Angeles for errands or whatever, every trip I made, it was that much worse. I felt that I was more hemmed in, more closed in on, the traffic was heavier. That shows you something about how high the water was, but
And so it was that Diebenkorn came to the Russian River of Northern California, where his dogs, Amy and Lucy, can run free, and where the river itself attracts him again and again. Do you ever, seeing a scene like this, say, all right, now I'm just going to go back to representational painting one time just to get this?
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Do you?
Yeah.
I mean, here?
I just thought I was down here with Amy several days ago, And I thought, well, next time I come down, I'll bring sketch pad, and I'm going to draw that.
Did you do it?
And I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to. I guess in the 50s, when I was doing abstract painting, I thought, well, to do representational stuff was just beyond the pale when an artist with any seriousness or sensibility simply didn't do that. You know, it was the sort of mindset that, for a set of reasons, one had, and now I and most artists don't have that mindset. So that if you see something out there that turns you on, well, it's subject. Subject.
One measure of Diebenkorn's standing in the art world, this current display of his drawings at the Museum of Modern Art in New York. Another, the recent sale of a Diebenkorn painting for $1.2 million, which puts him in a very select club of living American artists whose works command such prices. His friend and this exhibit's curator, John Elderfield.
For me, he's a very important artist. He manages both to be pioneering and to remind one in his work of, you know, the great masters of the past, and to reinvent their message for new generations. A sort of reimagining of Matisse, of Cézanne, of even earlier artists who he admires very deeply.
It gets a bit more chaotic than this.
But after all the analysis, Richard Diebenkorn marvels, just like the rest of us, at the mystery of how art comes to be created. Each of his works a roadmap of its own making, with changes and second thoughts right there on the canvas for anyone to see.
There's a trial and error and a butting one's head against a wall. And I might say it's all right except for one little corner, and so I changed that little corner, and then that alters other parts, and pretty soon I'm back into it, and then maybe it changes completely.
The aim is not what we might call finish in a conventional way, because some of the works look unfinished, but rather having fought that fight to his satisfaction. And when he feels somehow that he's worked that out, then he can leave it alone.
Are you a slave to disposable batteries? Then you need a GE rechargeable battery system. One GE battery can be recharged for up to 4 years and take the place of over 100 disposables, which is bound to make most everyone happy.
Lots of long hours and hard days wrapped up in this one. The Pontiac Transport SE. Took it all the way from the design studio to reality. You factor it all in. Safety, comfort, performance. Then make sure it ends up beautiful. You know, I think we did it.
GM has been recognized for design excellence by the Industrial Designer Society of America more than any other U.S. company.
He's being really strange today.
I'm dealing with your changes.
Good morning, Mom.
As best I can. And though I miss the boss, I kind of like the man. So I'm enjoying the debut of that good.
How's the coffee?
It's really good.
Good. Maxwell,
You gotta go.
it's only Maxwell House. That's the good to the last drop.
Isn't life magnificent?
Maxwell House, and
having oatmeal for breakfast gets a little boring. Wake it up with grape nut cereal. Mix them up, then cook them up. Rev up the texture, turn up the flavor. Oomph up your oatmeal with Post Grape Nut cereal.
Checking in.
We interrupt this transaction for a reminder. The Discover card actually pays you cash back for every charge.
Nice job, everybody.
It pays to Discover.
Here is a final look at the news of this Sunday morning. President Reagan should be on his way home by now after minor surgery yesterday on the ring finger of his left hand. The surgery was performed to correct an abnormal curvature of that finger, and it was described as completely successful. The fighting has been fierce in Beirut this morning, as it has been for 9 days now, between rival Shiite Muslim groups. This morning's toll among Hezbollah and Amal militia fighters, perhaps a dozen killed and perhaps about 24 wounded. And now we're going to turn to the mail. Well, actually not quite yet. I would like to settle a few mail-related matters first. Item number one. A while back, it was said on Sunday morning that George Westinghouse invented the steam engine. Now, we know that George Westinghouse did not invent the steam engine. He invented the air brake. We have since read aloud several letters on this point, but you are still writing. Nisa Hart of Mary Washington College says, for instance, you're still wrong. John Watt did not invent the steam engine. Steam engines had been in existence for almost a century before Watt's invention. John Watt, she says, was responsible for harnessing the energy of the steam engine. Well, I won't quarrel with you over the mechanics of the thing, Ms. Hart, but John Watt didn't do any of that. James Watt did, and he's dead. And so is George Westinghouse. And so I now declare is this entire issue. Very well. Item number two. Another hardy perennial in the mail. Bill Geist visited Baltimore not long ago to gather some intelligence on the subject of that city's famous delicacy, the blue crab. Hundreds of you have fired off letters to say that the crab-eating techniques shown in Mr. Geist's report and the spices recommended therein are for tourists and greenhorns. The real way to eat crab is, and then you say what the real way is. I say this. The question of Bill Geist's culinary style can only be settled in the end between Bill Geist and his maker. For our purposes, insofar as mortals can settle such things, it is settled. All right, no more steam engines, please. No more steamed crabs. Sometimes you just have to put your foot down. Last week, in our salute to the Americans who died during 1988, we gave the late Dawes Butler credit for having been the cartoon voice of Yogi Bear and Quick Draw McGraw and Boo Boo and Baba Louie, which was a case of giving him slightly too much credit. Don Messick writes to us from Santa Barbara, California, to say, Dawes was a great talent. He was a great friend for more than 40 years, but, Mr. Messick says, I was the voice of Yogi's little buddy Boo Boo, and he says I was and I still am, and I want to assure my family and friends back east that as of this writing, I am alive and well. So here's to Don Messick, who was also Ranger Smith and Pixie Mouse and who lives on in Santa Barbara. Our address is Sunday Morning, 524 West 57th Street, Box K, New York, New York, 10019. As for the address of certain white ibises and wood storks and spoonbills, we know, that would be Safety Harbor, Florida. At the wildlife refuge here, the birds strut on spindly stilts and bend and peck at the marsh. We will leave you for this week among the birds wintering safely in Safety Harbor. I'm Charles Kuralt. I hope you'll join us here again next Sunday morning.
This is Leslie Stahl. Can the U.S. stop Gaddafi from making chemical weapons? Watch the Libyan foreign minister and Senator Biden face the nation today.